You're going to go back to the kennel, Moo. You do it one more time. Oh, Macho's out. That was his last part. Not happening. Hop in there, boo-boo. Get up. Get up. I suggest you go up. Get your butt in there. Thank you. You going in there too? You making all that fussy noise? Where do you think you're gonna go? Let's go, rodeo. Honey boo. Bye-bye, baby. Okay, anybody else? Anybody else wants to go into their room? So as far as potty training, they've been up for about an hour and a half, 2 hours now. And we have a couple. Mostly this is them face coming up and jumping up, dirt and such. She was outside, went to potty. But this is, I think there's 1, 2, 3 that they had an accident. And that would more than likely be Honeyboo, because he had in a lot of chickens, if they had pasty butt when they were little, it develops into an issue where they have a harder time controlling, especially if you give them something like grapes, fruits, certain things like pumpkin, squashes, will do it, and it gives them a little bit of a looser stool. Honey's been practicing for a long time to be able to walk on this mama's bed, because of that. Now, these are the baby girls. So these are my spring babies. And they have been, I think they're like at 60, 50, 60% accurate. A lot of times they'll get close to the pad itself and like aim wrong. But the attempt is there, right? So they're going from this direction and they're like, oh my gosh, I gotta go. So they gotta get over to the pee pad. And so the attempts are there, the knowledge is there, the understanding is there as far as what they need to do. It's now just development because they are still growing. Like I said, they're my spring babies. And so they don't have as much physical control as the older ones do. If that makes sense. So it does take time for them to have physical control. The knowledge gets there quickly. That they pick up really quickly. You can see it in their eyes. And I hate to say it that way because a lot of people think that's nuts. But you can see the intelligence in their eyes, right? If you've been around animals enough to know that some just don't get it, right? And then some just like, boom, the light bulb goes on. And it's really cool with the chickens because I got them when they're like 2 or 3 days old. And so for me, being able to see the developmental, obviously you're not expecting a 3-day-old chicken to be able to even attempt to be potty trained. And so what I do now, because this is my 3rd batch of chickens and teaching potty training, the Silkies develop very, 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 very slowly. So they got a lot of grace, just because developmentally they develop very slow. The Coochins, on the other hand, from what I can see, as far as these 2 girls, their development is midway between the European birds, and these are white, so that's not a good example, but Macho's in there, he's in New England. So between them, or the New England, or the European chickens develop pretty quickly. They are from like Thailand, and so they developed pretty quickly, I would have to say, compared to the Silkies. Silkies are the longest birds as far as development I've ever seen. I've never had Silkies before. I've always had either egg-laying birds or meat birds. When I was a kid, it was egg-laying birds and meat birds. We lived on a farm. I was in charge of at the age of 13, 14, I was in charge of pretty much a lot of different animals. We had, I was in charge of all the cows and the horses, which we had one cow that was milking, which means I milked the cow, my mom as well. But as far as caring of it, I had 100% control over that. And we had like 4 horses that I also was in control over. And so the cow had a calf. So I had a boy that was turning into a bull. And so we also had over 300 chickens. And like I said, they were egg laying, meat laying chickens. We had 6 sows, which are pigs that pigs that give large amounts of piglets for meat consumption. And then, so we had 6 of them, and they each had an average of 12 to 15 babies. So you can imagine that's a lot of animals. I did have help from my mom and my dad. My dad was totally in charge of the pigs. We assisted with them. So when they were born, any medical care, prepping, was all done by my mom with my assistants. And so there's a lot of hands-on knowledge that I got that couple years that we were living on that farm, until it was during the Depression, so they ended up losing it. But anywho, that's my experience as a large-scale farm, or not really. I would consider that like a homestead farm. It's not a large-scale farm, but we had a large scale of different animals, is what I mean. And then as an adult, I've had pigs, I've had horses, I've had chickens, and I've always had a hard time with it because the climate that we were in was very harsh. And a lot of people do not see animals as entities of care. So they give enough care to consume, but as far as humane care, like you would a dog, they allow certain allowances for depending on what the animal's used for. So if an animal's being used for consumption, then the quality of care goes down significantly. So you would never expect or see a humane society that was taking care of dogs, for example, on a large scale, being able to do what a large-scale chicken owner could do. And so as far as comparison of the two, that's what I mean by that. So the care, I didn't understand the needs of the cares of chickens due to the fact of how I was taught to treat them. So we were taught, Momo, I'm trying to tell people all about you and you're not helping, sweet pea. Yes, do your feathers. So I didn't get the opportunity to be close and comfortable with them, as well as being able to understand them on a deeper meaning, because I didn't live with them, and I wasn't around them enough. So you can go out there for half an hour and sit with your chickens and not be able, and that's not the same as being with your dog or your cat or your kids or your husband or your wife, right? So that's a half an hour. That's like going to the store and seeing the store clerk and having a nice little conversation with that store clerk. So you really can't get an idea of how that animal is personality wise. You can get a glimmer of it, but that they're always, I notice with mine, even now I see them accepting me more, right? So even though I'm mama, they understand that I'm a predator. They understand, and the residents here, some of them eat meat. So they smell chicken cooking. They smell meat being served. They don't smell that on me, but they do definitely smell that. And they also understand that Faith, who is a dog, and Canine, and there's other dogs around, that they can smell and understand that they eat meat as well. I try to keep Faith on a lamb and rice diet, but I don't always have control over that, especially with things being in shortage in different places. So sometimes we run out of food and it's not been shipped, and then I have to do local, which I don't really like to do, because I really like to get her. I have her on a really good plan of food, but unfortunately it's hard to get. And I can't store a large amount of food like that because we live in the city and the rats are horrendous here. They're just horrendous. Nobody talks about it, but it's horrendous here. And so storing is very important when you're talking about storing feed and storing food for dogs and such. But anyway, as far as my understanding of caring of animals, I've had every pet you can probably. There's not one pet that I haven't had from a pet store, and from all the way from a childhood, all the way. My dad, bless his heart, built me a guinea pig farm, and so basically it was just a big frame that he built in our basement that had like just different sections to it, so the guinea pigs could run around it and view and be in their own environment, and I could view it openly because it didn't have a top to it, but it was tall enough for them not to be able to get out. So it was pretty cool because I could fill it up with soil. We experimented with different beddings and different things like that. So it was pretty cool for a kid to be able to experiment that. I think I had up to like 14 at one point. So that was kind of cool. But that was my first experience with taking care of social animals in a social setting, and it was very intriguing because there's a big difference between having one guinea pig and having 14. And of course I started out with 2. They were supposed to be both girls, obviously not. And so that started. And so the issue is it's okay, Boo Boo Bear. Faith is gonna go look. It's getting cold out, so early in the mornings they tried to come in from outside. So they're we can hear them out there. The rats. But anyway, that was my first experience with a large scale of animals, having to take care of them. And also it was very intriguing because the experience of being able to see the social makeup of animals. So I obviously had a boy and a girl. They had babies. And then I made sure I separated them. I did a lot of research. Believe me, I was one of those nerdy girls that sat in the library for 6 hours after school before they went home, And so I was very knowledgeable about keeping the boys separate, keeping the girls separate. And it was very, like I said, very interesting and researchy for me as a child. And I think I was like, gosh, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old at the time. So not very old, but it was very interesting experience. And that, I think, always in the back of my head when I had animals is that not to have one, right? We always talk about chickens not to have one. It's not that you can't have one. It's just that their development is going to be stunted, and the behaviors, unwanted behaviors might start happening, and it's hard to if you're a humane person, in a sense, it's hard to train an animal without taking away its spirit or its humanity. And so I'm very, very conscious of that. So I'd rather have them keep their humanity and their will than break that or stunt that and cause them to be a different, I want them to be as natural, have them free choice as possible. So with my birds, what I do with them is they usually have choices. So they may be natural choices or unnatural choices. So some of those I've studied them extensively, and to the point where naturally I know different things. Like, for example, me being able to move right now, I can move him without actually touching him. And he knows that I'm going to want him. I can verbally ask him to move, and he may move. Or I could just do this, and he's going to move. Which in the chicken world, I just asked him to move. It wasn't a violent act. There's nothing wrong with that. There was no physical contact. What I did was, in the chicken world, when chicken comes up to them and comes up to them directly, like I just did, and not touching them, but directly come up to them, that fast movement. I'm sorry, I was using you as an example, and I do apologize. But that fast movement and that intent is an indication for them to move. So if you're moving too fast, they're not going to be able to process, especially if you're in a group, right? There's just one bird that I was asking to move, but if you go into a chicken run or a coop, and you have 30, 40 birds and they're all crowded up in there, and you're trying to get in there and feed and all that different things, clean and all this stuff, different stuff, they're not going to be able to respond quick enough without interfering with the other one. They need a large amount of space. As far as that. So you can see how far close he got to Lizzie. This space that he has with Lizzie is not, I wouldn't say inappropriate, but it's not appropriate. The only reason why he's doing it is he's doing what is called, the girls are getting to the age where they're almost mature enough to lay eggs. So the boys are doing their thing. So this is a boy making his knowledge to the girl. He's making his intent to the girl that I want to protect you, that I'm here to watch over you. Now, she doesn't obviously need that watch over. She's been surrounded by her family and her loved ones, but his intent is, socially intent is to go ahead and give her that cue that I'm interested to protect you. Now, Moo does that with a lot of people. Moo is blind. Moo does that with a lot of people that he trusts. So his intentions may or maybe not romantic. We don't know at this point because he has not attempted to be romantic with any of the girls. And it might be because he's blind. So being able to jump up on a girl and being able to position to be able to mate may not be possible for him, or it may be possible, but in a very clumsy way. And Moo's very, very OCD. He's OCD about poo. He's OCD about people being in places that they're not supposed to be. So he does a lot of crowing because he's blind and he's not able to see enough to... He knows where she's at, but as far as what he's looking at, he doesn't necessarily know that that's her butt or her front. So he's just hovering over her and, saying, hey, I'm here for you, in that sense. So it's more of a comforting thing. But that boundary was still too close. So if the birds didn't like each other, for example, my Moo and my Sassy do not like each other. And the closest that Moo will get to Sassy comfortably is if Sassy's up here on the bed, which is Sassy's safe place when he's down. Moo can be on the bed and be comfortable with that. He's still going to crow a lot, do a lot of vocalization because he's concerned about where Sassy's at all times. But if they're on the floor, this area here is not big enough for them to. This area is not big enough for those two to be around each other. Same thing with my macho man who is in his kennel and my honeyboo who is in the kennel. They do not like each other, those boys. Now, Honey and Sass can walk right next to each other, and they're going to probably be about a foot apart, but they're not going to attack each other. Honeyboo and Sass don't attack each other. And Macho and Moony Moon don't attack each other. More of they do the brotherly loves type thing where they play and stuff. But which is something I've encouraged Macho to do because he needs something more than just Honey as a playmate. And a little bit scares him. And he has the utmost respect for a little bit, but she scares him. She flies for one, and any flyers scare him because he can't tell if it's a hawk coming down or a little bit coming down. So if Sass and Little Bit flew down right now, that would kind of set Moo off because he would not necessarily know unless I verbally said, hey, Sassy Boo and Little Bit's coming down now. And then Sass would be, and then Moon would be cued into, that's the rats again, trying to get in from outside. It's okay, Boo Boo Bear. They're not in the house. They're just trying to get in. But if I can verbally kind of prompt him before I know it's going to happen, he doesn't respond as audible. He doesn't respond. He freaks out. You just pooped on my bed. I know. Move. That's his. Okay, I'm going to get to the pooping thing. So this is the whole point of this video, and I just wanted to see them do it one time so I could show you. The other issue with potty training with the hens, it's really great. To be honest with you, a little bit, I will put toilet paper out like little squares, and she will poop right on the toilet paper, pick it up and throw it right in the garbage, right? On the poop pad. She does not like, it's the only time she poops on my bed is when she's mad at me. And that's about they'll do that because they're mad. But 90% of the time, like I said, she did that on her own as far as the toilet paper, because I would be picking them up with the toilet paper, and they like to tear the paper up. So I was leaving paper out for them to tear up, and then one day she was pooping on it, and I thought, oh, that was just a mistake or whatever. Oh no, she did it multiple times and has consistently done it. And like I said, the only time she's had problems is if she's sick, like diarrhea, that type situation, like any other animal that's sick that have a hard time controlling. And then when she's mad at me. Other than that, she's 90% accurate. These two, like I said, we talked about that before. The problem with the cockerels, my boys, I have 4 of them. And I did not know this, but I found out with research that cockerels will poo in the nesting boxes of their preferred girl or where they sleep. So if they're roosting or whatever, so obviously that would be hard for you guys would know, but they know the difference between one poo and the other. Their sense of smell is very, very accurate. I did hear somebody say that they cannot smell, which I think I will state that is completely inaccurate. They can tell when cooking is going on in the kitchen. They know when cooking is going on in the kitchen that they like homemade pizza and different things like that. They know the difference between the foods. They'll actually all start singing when pizza is being cooked. Not frozen pizza, I mean homemade pizza. So that from this dough, from all the way from the flour to the dough to the whole 9 yards. So they can smell that whole process. So they know what that's being made is pizza, which is their favorite food, as far as cooked food. But they also know when other things are being cooked. So they know they can smell treats, they can smell crackers, so their smell is very, very more, I would say almost up to par with the dog. So I don't know about the whole smell thing, but that's my interpretation of it as far as them living with me 24/7. We're going on 2 years with the 5 main ones, and this is, like I said, I got them in the spring. So I would have to state that they can smell very well. But being that said, they get very frightened because we are surrounded by other families. We are surrounded by other homes. They have racing vehicles being raced up and down our street, and they understand and can hear it way before I can. So they start telling me there's somebody racing down the street. So you guys might want to use these chickens as like pre-warnings, because they're pretty spot on, and they have to be, because obviously they're on the lowest of the predator prey chain. The reason why obviously God made them be able to produce babies as much as they can is just the fact that they are on the bottom of the food chain. And so being that said, their alertness, of being aware of what's going on around them is very much so. The other thing, so with the cockerels is what my biggest issue with them, and I'm trying to teach them, and that's what I'm becoming, changing their behavior, their natural behavior, to accommodate our environment, our natural environment. So this obviously is not a natural environment for chickens inside of a house living like a person would a pet, like a cat or a dog, a domesticated animal. But as far as their intelligence, like I said, they're as intelligent as a dog, if not no, if not somewhat more so. They're very verbal, so they learn verbal commands very, very, very quickly. As far as understanding language, they put Spanish on, and they love Spanish as well. So I don't know if they are bilingual. I'm not sure if that's possible. I don't even know that's the whole thing about birds, but it seems like they understand because they watch Scooby Doo. It's one of their favorite cartoons, and so they've watched the same Scooby Doo cartoon in English over and over and over again. But then somehow or another got skipped to Spanish, or Spanish was offered, and we clicked on it, and they loved it just as well as the original one. So I'm not sure if it's what that's about, but they seem to understand that Spanish. So I don't know. So I put a lot of Spanish on, and they seem to love it. So I let them watch that. So I'll try different languages and see what happens. But the cockerels, that's one of the things that I have to. I'm teaching them. They know that I don't want them pooing on my bed, but it's natural for them to do it. So if they love you and they feel affection for you, it's like them giving you the best prize they could possibly give you is to poo. So if your chickens are pooing on like in front of your doorway, or if they're pooing in your chair that you sit in and on the porch that you drink your coffee, it's not because they're trying to be mean to you. It's actually a form of respect, and it's a form of love. That doesn't mean not discipline and tell them not to do it, because believe me, mine know they're not allowed to do it. But I just put them in their kennel, tell them not to put them in their kennel for 15 minutes and let it be. But I don't like scold them or anything like that, because I know it's out of love. So they're not doing it on purpose, and it's only once a day. It's only once a day, but I have 4 boys, so it's 4 of them competing with me. Luckily, Sass doesn't compete with me at all. I have not had him give me a love present yet. He's been infatuated with Sassy Boo since they were babies. So Sassy has always been my gentle giant. He's when they were little, Little Bit and him, when I got them, Little Bit and him were exactly the same size, and he hid under her wing. Macho actually was bigger than them because he was older than them. He was probably about 2-3 weeks. He already had his feathers already, so he was older. But Sassy was hiding under both of them, and did that for months until he finally went through his growth spurt, and he still tried to do that to the point where her wing was literally cocked up into the air, and I had to stop that. It's like, well, you can't do that no more. You're just too big. And thank goodness, because he's like 3 times bigger than her. You probably can. She's standing up and he's sitting down, and you can barely see her. He blocks her. Hi, baby. You want to be on the camera? What's up, Buttercup? This is my Izzy Boo. Izzy's maturity is a little bit faster than Lizzie's, and I don't know if that's just because she might be a little bit older. It's really hard when you get them from hatcheries and such, because you really don't know how much older they are. So give them a little bit of grace, even though they come in and they all look fluffy and everything like that. There still could be 3 or 4 days difference between them and their experience and behaviors, and having that experience of being in a closed environment with 300 babies making noise where there's no mama to respond is very traumatic. Just imagine a nursery of crying babies that are not being cared to, and and then there's just not one. There's 300 of them, so you can hear them. And you understand that nobody's coming. Nobody's making that chirpy noise of assurance and such that normally would happen with babies. So developmentally, they get scarred. And so Izzy, developmentally, either she's just bounced back really good, but she's really very advanced. I would say that she's probably on par as far as understanding what's going on around her as much as the older ones. Now, Lizzie has like PTSD. I don't know if it's because of her feathers. Because they're inverted like that, they may, when you're touching them, they may respond to stimuli to her differently, because once again, the chickens also use touch to communicate. As you just saw, she came over and touched my toe and pecked it, and that's her to asking me. She wants something. She wants breakfast, so I am ignoring her, and she knows it. But that's her just coming over and asking mom, "Hey mom, I want to eat. We're hungry. Stop talking to the people on the video and feed us." And so Izzy is very, 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 very. Izzy is like that. As a little bit was like that as well. I'm very advanced, very, very quickly. My silkies, like I said, developed very, very slow. So I had to be, like I said, give them a lot of grace, because at first I didn't realize that the reason why they were responding the way they were is because they were still babies. And whereas other chickens would be at that point hit maturity, they were still babies. And so I was trying to treat them as a mature bird, and they were babies. And so if you have silkies, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your birds, but I'm going to just, once again, when you take a meat bird out, or an egg-laying bird, or they're genetically bred to be that way, they develop very, very quickly. And we're talking about 3 to 8 weeks. Yeah, you guys throw them out into the outside world. They're okay with that, because once again, their develop is quicker. So they're able to handle predators, they're able to handle stress better and such. But the silkies are not. First of all, these are very ancient birds, and they've been around on this earth for a long time. And so they are true dinosaurs. And so they're not been genetically probably manipulated a little bit, but they're genetically, this is how they were 200 years ago. And so their development is different, and very much different. And so it's very slow. So I wouldn't say that they were hitting maturity. I would say they didn't start hitting maturity until almost their teenage years, until almost a year. And so they were babies, hiding, and I couldn't figure out why they were behaving the way they were, because they would hide, and they were skittish, and they were just, well, I didn't have the Moon's blind as well. But believe it or not, Moon, they understand he's blind, so they give him a lot of grace as well. Honeyboo is the one that gets terrorized. So if I leave all of them out and am I gone for like 20 minutes or whatever, unexpectedly, and I come back, it pretty well it will be okay. If I leave for like an hour unexpectedly, and I've had emergencies like that, where I wasn't able to put all of them away, and Honey was out, and all of them were out, and Honey's hiding, because he starts Honey is like that guy that thinks he's all that, but he's really not, and everybody around them wants him to leave them alone. And so because Honey is Mooney's guide, they're like a duo most of the time. I have put in perimeters for Moo, and so the bed is one of his safe places. So Moo is actually in charge of the bed, so he can kick people off of it he doesn't want on it, or doesn't feel safe to be around, and Mom's not going to say anything and will support it. The only person that he can't kick off is the girls. So he can't kick off a little bit Faith or the little ones here, but he can kick off the boys. And so it's another reason why he's crowing like that, because he's trying to protect the girls. This is what he's doing. But so the other birds give him a lot of grace because he is blind, and they give Honey a lot of grace because he's his guide. So they don't want to terrorize Honey to the point where he runs away and hides like that on a regular basis, because that leaves with him without a guide. So he at that point is, depending on where they're at, like obviously in our house, in our room, He's got the room memorized, so he knows where everything's at. If I move something, I have to direct him over there or take him over there so he can see where it is. But like mostly like the water and stuff. But if I move something big, I have to let him know. Otherwise, he won't know where anything's at. But I think the only reason why he chases Sass is because Sass is big enough for him to see, enough to grab a hold. And he grabs a hold of him on his wing, just enough not to hurt his wing, but just enough to hold on. And it's him holding on and Sass running. And so Sass, he doesn't hurt Sass, and Sass doesn't hurt him. He's never put his beak on him or his paw on him. They've never done the cockerel thing. They completely understand that he cannot see. Now, Mancho, like I said, with my encouragement, has engaged him. And that is because I want him to learn how to defend himself. And we're not helping him by taking care of him and not treating him like a regular cockerel. Right? So he doesn't have those defense skills because none of the boys will engage with that behavior with him. Honeyboo grabs a hold of he used to grab a hold of his wing or his backside. He had home feathers on him as far as any big ones, because that's how, when they were little, he would grab a hold of his brother and he wants to go somewhere where the food is at, right? And Moon doesn't know there's food there, or where the food's at. So Honey's trying to get him and he's not. So he just they're very rough. So bites from them are very, very hard, because they don't know their own strengths and because that's their defense mechanism. So once again, that's another thing that I've worked on training them with, is their bite. And so all those different things that nature has put in place for them to defend themselves, some of those things they use against each other. But once again, there's 4 layers of feathers on these guys. So when you look at him, you think that he's a pretty good sized chicken. Yes, he's tall and lanky and everything, but he's really frail, and he's very, 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 very frail. So their strength is in their neck and their beak, and that's where their strength is at. So when they are defending themselves, that beak is going to go through 3 layers of skin. I'm telling you right now. It will puncture a hole through you. That's how strong they are. So their neck and their back is very, very strong. Their legs are pretty strong, but not as strong as Sassy Boo, the Whitents. Sassy is strong and no wings, practically strength at all. But he does flap them. They use their wings, their paws, and their beak. And those are their 3 defense mechanisms. So no different than us, right? Where we use our mouths to defend ourselves. If somebody gets too close, we bite them. They use their wings just like we use our arms and our hands. So they will flap you. So that's why I always tell people, don't put your face all up into a bird. If you don't have familiarity with that bird, I can stick my face. I'll show you. Come here, Moo. Come here, Boo. I told him before I was going to touch him. He doesn't like it. He's not wanting to go with me, but he's not going to hurt me over it, right? But I can put my face all up in his business and not have any care that he's going to bite me, right? But once again, I live with him, right? And my feet are scarred up because my feet are his way of communicating with me. And it took me a long time to teach him not to hit me so hard that it punctured my skin. Like I had holes in my feet from this little rascal. But he didn't get disciplined for it because, once again, it's his only way of communicating with me. It's to say, hey, stop, Mom, stop, I need you. And so his way of telling me and he can hear my feet stomping on the ground, and so he can track me by my feet. So that's his way of communicating. So I don't want him to get disciplined by my body place, which is my feet, of his communicating. So that's his kind of like his first. So when we talk face to face, our first inclination is to eye, right? They're birds and they're like a foot off the ground. So their first communication with you is your feet. So what you do with your feet is very, 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 very important with birds. What you have on your feet is important. What you do with your feet is important. Please do not kick your birds. Please don't kick at your birds. Even if they're coming at you, turn around and walk away. Come on. Or let them all out. Don't invade their space, right? You're invading their space and then you're expecting them to be happy about it and not respond at all. And that's unreasonable. I mean, it's unreasonable. If somebody walked in your house and started telling you what to do, it would kind of really unnerve you. So respect the fact that that coop and that run is their environment. That's their space, right? That's not your space. You're invading their space to take care of them, but you're still invading their space. And so they need to be able to have choices of things. Otherwise, they're going to be not, if you want that relationship, right? If you don't care and want to have a relationship with your birds, then this conversation is over. Because this is all about you wanting to have a relationship with your birds and how to do that without offending them. And so you got to look at the fact that if that environment, that enclosure is their space and their safe space, then you're invading it when you're coming in there. So getting their permission is one thing I do. So when I'm opening up their kennels, before I open up their kennels, because that's their individual space, they understand that that's their safe space. It's not a punishment. Mom's not putting me in a cage. Moo will actually request to go in there when he's at night because that's usually where he sleeps. Most of the boys do. They rotate out. Mooney doesn't choose to do that, especially when during the cold season coming in with the rats and such. That skittish noise upsets him. So even though they're not in here, it just upsets him. So he likes to stay in his kennel at night. But I know, Bubble Bear. But I do use them and they know we're sharing this space. This is a word I use a lot. We're sharing the food. We're sharing the space. So they know, the boys know. I mean, they obviously know because they're the ones living it, right? So they know that Macho and Honey don't get along. They know that Sass and Mooney don't get along. Mom rotates them so that they still have that time like they do right now. Sassy's out. Mooney's out, but they're in a place where there's no chance of interaction. Now, Sass at some point is going to get thirsty and want to come down, which is fine. They know their routine. I know, Boo. So they know who they like and who they don't like. You're not going to change that behavior, is who they like and who they don't like, but you can put rules and regulations in place. So my rules and regulation is no paws, no beak. So Sass is really good about following rules. He's very OCD about rules. He loves rules. He wishes everybody would follow the rules. He knows that Mooney's blind, so once again, he gives him grace with that. But Sass has never attacked anybody. He's never bit anybody. He's never attacked anybody. Every once in a while, Macho will get up in his face and he'll defend himself by doing the circle thing. You know, they basically are telling each other off. I don't know how to explain it. They're basically face to face and they're kind of moving around in a circle. This kind of behavior. So that's kind of like the preemptive communication between two cockerels and them talking to each other. And that can either escalate to them walking away or it can escalate into an actual fight. And then when they do that, they square up, right? And they're just like face to face and they're kind of flaring up and such. They've got to that point. I did allow them to play when they were little, but obviously, as you can see, Sassy's much, much bigger. Well, as you can't see, because Macho's in here. I'm going to take you out, Macho, for them to see how big you are compared to your brother. Come over here. Macho is my head rooster. He was purchased to be my head rooster if he was going to be a boy. So I did know that obviously there's a 50-50 chance of having a boy. And so when I knew that I wanted the New England for that purpose, if I end up with a boy, I wanted it to be him. So I was not unhappy about getting him. Come on out. Are you eating they had a little bit of cupcakes this morning. Little bitty piece. Did you have a treat in there? You didn't even eat your cupcake. It's still in there. Let me move your... I see. I know. You still have your cupcake. You lucky ducky. That rat wants to eat that cupcake. You better hurry up and eat it. I think I can smell it. You better eat it all gone. They had cupcake. I cleaned out the refrigerator and this was left over and somebody didn't eat it and it was just a vanilla cake. It's a good cake, wasn't it, Mama? Usually they don't get sweets because I'm a chocoholic. So most of the sweets that I purchase got chocolate in it and they can't have it. So anytime I come across something that they can have, we do have a treat every once in a while. Probably every 6 months. Cupcakes are not something we eat very often. All gone. I think you're getting all the bits and pieces. I still wanted you to come out and show everybody how big you are. And I wanted to do under an hour vid, so you need to move your hiney out here because we're getting up to 46 minutes. It's like, Mom, if I don't eat this, somebody's going to steal it. They will. Little bit will go in there and steal it. The boys will go in, the angel boys. Moo is called my angel boys. Honey Boo. I'll let Honey Boo out. I love you too, Boo Boo Bear. Yeah, you're going to be a good boy and stop crowing. I know. You're taking too long. I'm letting your boy out. Hi, honey. You had so much corn this morning. Are you kidding? Really? Back to the corn? Okay, here's Macho. Macho, step up. I just want to compare you to your brother. See, that's the reason why he's head honcho and Sassy's not. One, Sassy's not brave. He's a shy boy. And two, I wanted the smaller bird to be in charge for obvious reasons. But Macho is very intelligent. He is my smart boy. And I'm not saying Sass isn't smart because he is freaking smart. But he's, like I said, he's my shy boy. But Macho Man, we're working on a defensive flying. And Honey Boo is helping out with that, isn't he? Yes, he is. So what we'll do is we'll let Honey Boo and Macho out at the same time. And then normally I won't come and get him out of his kennel. And then he'll fly. Instead of getting on the ground where Honey's going to attack him, he'll fly from his kennel to my bed or to Mama or to the top of the bed or somewhere safe. Right, baby? That's what we're working on. Defensive flying. Defensive flying. That's right. We got to get up and out. Up and out. So I'm not a bird, but we have to teach the birds how to I want him to be, he wasn't doing that. He would sit there and think about flying, right? Think about getting up there. Fly. So he's thinking about it so much that he's not doing it. And then this is just him playing. He's mad at me right now. He just bumped you off of there, didn't he, Bubble Bear? But that's normal cockerel behavior. I don't interfere with that. There was no fisticuffs going on. There was no, biting and kicking and such. That was just a breast bump, which is normal. And he also knew that he wasn't going to hurt his brother doing it. So that is appropriate behavior. He's my head chicken rooster. I have 4 boys. He's in charge of all 4 of them. And with Honey being he's afraid of. So as long as he's messing with his face right now. He started doing this behavior where he's doing stuff to irritate her because she was in heat. She was in heat the first time she was in heat when he was mature. So she's been in heat before, but he was never a mature bird at the time. So she got pregnant and so he never went through a heat with her. So he's trying to do his manly thing with his sister, with Faith. And so she's basically telling him no.